So today was our first padded practice. Again, just per the CBA, we're limited time-wise, so still a little bit of a ramp-up day coming off the day off. We'll be in pads again tomorrow. Any questions?
How much, I know you got to watch film and all that, but how much more do you learn from a padded practice versus a regular?
I think a lot more. And there's been so many cases that I can recall where the pads defined a player positively and sometimes negatively. But what you typically see early on with pads, and we're going to watch it on tape. Today our pad level, I'm sure, is going to be higher than we want it to be, both offensively and defensively, and I'm talking about the interior lines. But it's significantly different.
To that point, you mentioned, is there any credence? There's always a notion that the defense is usually further ahead. Is there any credence to that?
I think there is to some degree. And look, what I think begins to take place is you begin to see days where one side of the ball or the other gets the better in practice. The thing you got to balance is the head coach, regardless of whether you're a head coach involved in the offense or the defense, is growth on both sides of the ball. And so, we had some snap count. We had, a handful of things that we have to get cleaned up. But that can be true early on with pads.
You said Saturday that you thought it'd be more competitive with pads on. Did you get that sense?
I did, and that'll, we'll continue to see that.
What was it like to finally see JFM in the pads?
It was good. I want to watch the tape. He's a player. If you study his history, and I mean, his production, he's very consistent year in and year out, what he's done. And generally speaking, what we saw was the physicality of how he plays. He's not a guy that's going to take an edge all the time, but he's going to get push and disrupt the pocket in a way that's problematic, just as a sack would be. But certainly a player like him is going to stand out more with pads than in the offseason.
Did you bring in Roach specifically for interior rush defense to help DJ?
No, we brought in Malcolm for versatility. Look, I was there in New Orleans when we signed him. He's one of those guys that loves football. He's very smart. He can play on third down, but he's got versatility to play the nose, play kind of across the board inside, and then I know his makeup well. And now he and DJ get along. I mean, those guys have connected, but he's a high energy guy that he doesn't have many bad days, and that's contagious, if you will. That had a lot to do with it.
Coach, how did the players respond to their first day off? Were you satisfied with how they were out?
Well, no phone calls or text messages is a good start. I thought good. A lot of them were here getting treatment yesterday, getting a lift in, staying off their feet.
You mentioned him. What did you see from him so far?
Well, he's a player that we've seen a noticeable jump from the spring to when he returned. There's a little bit, he's playing a little bit more decisively with more confidence, and that's probably because he's getting to know the system. It's hard to play that way if you're thinking and you don't know exactly the assignment as well as you need to, but he's noticeably been more comfortable in his role right now.
You mentioned on Saturday, sort of like starting this week, going back to the first install.
Yeah.
What is it specifically when you go back over those things you want to see?
Well, repetition is the mother of learning. And so what you want to see are reduced mental errors. There'll be physical mistakes, but you want to see, and so we can be guilty sometimes of going too fast, and then if that happens, we might not get the proper evaluation of a player. Remember, the goal here is to get the right 53. And so this is the third time now we're on day one install. Tomorrow, this will be the third time they're on the second, and so I think that's a big part of learning.
When you have a stretch like you did where you're talking about sort of snap count issues and that stuff, is it more concerning because it's back to the day one install?
Yeah, I don't think it's significant. I think that's something, a year ago it was significant, but I think it's something that is easily cleaned up.
Having the alumni out here,
It's fantastic.
what do you say to the current players about kind of being able to come back someday? Do you talk to them?
Well, we do, and it's reflective in the building, and you guys get to see parts of the building. But I think it's important we embrace the tradition here, and that was set and built on the shoulders of a lot of these guys, and I want them to always feel this is home and they're welcome. Any practice, game. I really want them to walk the hallways because there's been quite a bit of effort to really, throughout the building, you feel the history of this program. In 8 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl trophies, and you see it and you feel it on the hallway walls, in the meeting rooms, and I think it's important. Look, it's hard to leave this game, and I think I know Kerry and Greg have set a priority in embracing our alumni, and that's something I'm thrilled about because I think that's the lifeblood of your program, really. And then these players see it, and there's a bar that's been set, and we embrace that.
Sean, how much fun is it for you as a football fan? Like you talked about Randy and the Cups. When you meet somebody that you knew played here, maybe you hadn't met before, you meet them.
Yeah, listen, I love meeting because I like the history of the game, and there's so many of these players that I remember but have never met before. Some younger, some older. I said to them, the linemen get skinnier and the running backs and receivers get heavier. That's just something, I don't know what that's about, but it was good having them out here, and I think it's good for our players to see those guys out here.
Was there a few that you met today for the first time? That's kind of cool.
Well, there's too many. I mean, the last player I met, I was supposed to coach in 2012. He came to the Saints last. Graham, tight end, whose father played here. I think the first father-son, they're from here that played here, but a number of guys.
Sean, you're used to being in front of big crowds at work, sold-out stadiums, but is it a different feeling being in a stadium at a Kenny Chesney concert when you're on stage?
Yeah, there's a lot less pressure because I know he's doing the singing and I'm just smiling and signing an autograph. So it's pretty amazing to see that many people. His promoter he's had for 24 years, Louis Messina, and when you do an arena or you do a shed, maybe there's X amount of risk. But when you choose to do stadiums, there's quite a bit of risk relative to, I'm not sure 48,000 might be your break-even number. I mean, when you take on that type of challenge, then there's more at stake, and it's been unbelievable to see someone like that who's now 56 years old. We've known each other for 22 years, and there was a point, not when I was on stage, but there was a point earlier when I just looked up and thought, man, every seat's filled here, and I think when you look at the song list, he's had 36, I think, number ones. And so the show ends, and there's 5 that, hey, didn't get to this. Well, you can't get to them all. But it was impressive. It was impressive that night for me to be at our stadium in that environment, different than, because I was asked by a number of people in his group, is it the same? And for us, it's different. I've headsets on. It's different. But it was really impressive to see the turnout in that stadium. I'd only been to football games in that stadium. In fact, I coached in the first football game ever played in that stadium, Monday Night Football, the day before 9/11. and that's when Ed McCaffrey broke his leg. I was a young offensive coordinator for the Giants that night. So that was 2001, I believe. And there was only one other event prior to that event. John Cougar Mellencamp, I think 2 weeks earlier, played in that stadium. So I got a pretty good memory.
John, there's plays out here sometimes where it looks like, okay, that might have been an obvious quick sack, but you allow the play to continue. Is the part of that just so that the back end still gets its work?
Yes, because you waste a rep if it's just that. The quarterbacks are taught to flush. The receivers are taught to move with the QB. The deep, there's scramble rules for both sides of the ball, and so let's gain something from each one of these plays. And then as the fan, sometimes you look at it and you wonder, is that a sack? You know, and we can tell on film. You know, there's times where the quarterback is going to get out clean. There's a play like where Nick steps up, and I think he's going to have a pretty good gain. But we try to get something out of each play.
David Shaw was out here today. Can you kind of talk about his role?
Yeah, so he was hired in the offseason. David and I worked together for a couple of years in Philadelphia. My first 2 years in the NFL, I was with David with the Philadelphia Eagles. 1997, 98, under Ray Rhodes. John Gruden was our offensive coordinator. John Harbaugh was our special teams coordinator. There was like 6 head coaches on that staff. Bill Callahan, Emmett Thomas, Joe Vitt. I know I'm going to miss a few, but David was hired in the offseason. He'll be in more of a front office position, helping us in the evaluation. There's a number of things that he can help us with, and he's extremely smart. He's a close friend and a good addition for us.
What's the ceiling for Zach Allen this year?
Good question. Well, I would still say if you asked him, he still feels like there's growth, and I think generally speaking, when you get good on one side of the ball, then your better players have a chance to really excel. And I think that the depth that around him has a chance to benefit him. So I don't want to set a bar because I've seen it exceeded too many times.
Sean, what are you looking to see out of Nick Benito as he goes into year 3?
Yeah, look, he came into his own a little bit last year. He's practiced well. I think he's sudden. He's someone that really plays the edge well. I think setting the edge in the run game, is something that he'll continue to work on with his added strength. But I also feel like I'm seeing a more confident player compared to like this very day a year ago, and that's encouraging.
Sean, you mentioned the Knicks scramble. Is that something that you encourage him to do, to use his instincts in those moments, or
all of them?
Stay in?
No, I mean we're looking to throw in the pocket, but we're also looking to make smart decisions with the football. And I said this I think a few days ago. All 3 of these guys have good mobility, and so look. The pocket in our league is not always clean, and so when it gets dirty at times, then you have to be reactionary, and your teammates have to as well, and so it goes along to that point that was asked a little bit earlier. He's being smart with the football, and it's a strength of his.
You brought in Trenton Gill, the punter, to compete with Riley.
Yep.
How has that looked so far, and how much does the other parts of special teams, whether it's holding, kickoff stuff, factor in that race?
I think, look, both of them are very experienced. Nick and Holt, they both can hold exceptionally well. Both of them are hitting it pretty well. Today, we had an extended punt period, and I think the competition's good. It's healthy.